You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online. My name's Andrew Mackay-Smith. Thanks so much for joining me. I was thinking about putting some date stamping each episode by putting the date into it up front. If you think that's a good idea, reach out and tell me. If not, well, whatever. But I might do it just so as though there's a bit more of a verbal signature of when the episode has been, or the interview in the episode has been conducted. But whatever, no matter when you're listening to this, it's a choice conversation with one of the originals, Steve Riley. He's the drummer in LA Guns. Now, for those out of the loop, there are two versions of LA Guns. Steve is in the version that features Kelly Nichols on bass guitar. So Kelly and Steve are the original rhythm section from the band that Tracy Guns started way back in the day. Tracy Guns, of course, is continuing with another version, and we do talk a little bit about that through the conversation, but that's not the catalyst. The reason for the chat with Steve is to talk up the new album, Renegades. It's very, very good. Even if you don't like this sort of rock and roll that LA Guns typically produce, this album has been wonderfully recorded. Steve has spent a lot of time getting it right in the studio. Plenty of great riffs, some great vocals. It's all there. So here he is, Steve Riley from LA Guns. Hey Steve, it's Andrew Mackay-Smith calling for our chat. How you going?
Andy, how are you, mate?
Mate, I'm not doing too badly, actually. Settling in for a day of writing, as I tend to do these days. What's the day held for you thus far outside of these interviews?
Yeah, right now it's Tuesday over here, and you got a full day ahead of you.
I do, yeah. I've just at the ripe old age of 42. I was 40 when I went back, but I went back to uni and got a journalism degree so as I could do this sort of stuff with some academic rigour around it. And I've decided that I want to write some books as well, mate.
Oh.
And they're you'll be in it. I've got to tell you that because my book is focused on the podcast and all of the people who have achieved career longevity, which you of course have, mate. So congratulations, you're going to be in the book.
Oh, terrific! Thank you.
Well, you've had a long and illustrious. I know it hasn't always been easy because it never is playing rock and roll, but from your time in Wasp to what you're doing here with LA Guns, you've done it. You've actually done it, mate. So I know you've got a story to tell.
Oh man, yeah, and I did a ton of stuff, Andy, before Wasp too. I started recording in 1975. Todd Rundgren produced the album, and I did a bunch of one-off albums, and then obviously I did Steppenwolf for a couple of years, and then Keel before Wasp, and so yeah, I've been doing it for quite a while now. I've been pretty fortunate.
This is potentially a difficult question to ask, but if you had your time over again, what do you think you'd do differently?
I always go back to the early Wasp. The original Wasp thing was just so good and so much fun to do that I just wish that we had done something different than disband that band. That was the only thing really that I had done in my whole career that I wish had went differently. And I just wish that original Wasp with me, Blackie, Chris Holmes, and Randy Piper never really broke up. I just thought we had something really special. So I look back at that, and I wish that might have been the only thing that had to change. Otherwise, I really like everything that I've done with LA Guns too. But that was something really special with Wasp that I thought was happening, and it didn't last as long as I wish it did.
I think a lot of people will concur with that because after those albums, when you left, Blackie turned it into more of a traditional heavy metal band or a glam band, whatever the term might be these days. But you guys performed some raucous rock and roll together, didn't you? And that was when Chris was at his absolute height. So I couldn't agree more with you.
Oh, man, I tell you, that band, that original four of us, man, that went out in '84, we were just on fire, and I knew we had something special. And Randy Piper was such a big part of that, so when he got fired, it really changed the dynamics of the band, and it slowly declined into me getting fired and then Chris getting fired and Blackie just taking it out on his own. So the whole dynamics of the band changed big time.
Is it just an ego thing? Is that why the band fell apart, meaning Blackie wanted to be the rock star and the centre of attention, and he wanted you guys to be more of the supporting cast? But I know you're all very strong personalities, and is that, on reflection, what you think it was?
You know what? I think that it was just a friction that was already in the band between Blackie and Randy, but Randy was such an important part of the band because he was the dual lead guitar player with Chris Holmes. They both had different styles. Randy played like a Billy Gibbons type of lead, and Chris was more of like an Eddie Van Halen type of tapper lead. And Randy was such an important part as the second vocalist in the band. So I think the friction was already there when I joined the band. And, Black was already pretty much the leader, and he was the lead songwriter. So I think that he already had control of the band, and we were following his lead. So I don't know, maybe he just wanted to go on his own, and that's what's happened. And when I got released from the band in '87, I was fortunate. LA Guns was right there waiting for me, and so I joined up almost immediately.
It didn't end for you, of course, after Wasp, because you joined LA Guns, and you've had a great career in the band ever since. And it arrives to this point now, because you've got this new album out called Renegades. And I think if anybody thought that your brand of hard rock was dying or was no longer relevant, the Rolling Stone like to say rock and roll is dead. Plenty of people do, but it's not, of course, because they should hear what you've conjured on this album here. You've done such a great job here. Kurt sounds fantastic, so congratulations for recruiting such a wonderful stage presence and voice as the voice that he brings to the band. So did you guys write the album as a collective, or can you tell me how it also sort of came together?
Yes, we were so fortunate to find Kurt. Kelly Nichols and myself, we were ready to audition since, as many singers as we needed to find the right guy that could do justice to the old material and be a fresh songwriter. And he was the first guy that we found or even looked at. Somebody in Las Vegas told me, you got to check out this guy, Kurt Frohlich. And I went up on the internet and I watched some stuff that he had done. He had done some original stuff and some cover material with doing Bowie. And actually, one of the songs I watched was him doing Ashes to Ashes at a club, and it was on internet, on YouTube. And I was just like bowled over. I was like, this guy is great. And I called him up, and we were so fortunate. We didn't have to audition anybody. And he is just a prolific songwriter, too. He brought in 4 of the songs, and we do it as a collective thing. I brought in a couple, Kelly brought in 3, Kurt brought in 4, Scotty brought in 1. And what we do is we have a very democratic way of doing it, too. Whoever brings in the gist of a song, the rest of the band finishes it in the pre-production mode, and we all take credit for it. So if it does good, everybody does good together. And but each guy is a songwriter. We all write, and we really went through like about 35 songs that we all were sitting on, and we picked out the 10 that we thought should be on this album. But we have a wealth of material, and everybody writes together, and the pre-production is such a really great way for everybody to put their little mark on the song, and that's why we share credit on everything.
Yeah, congratulations on that too. Yeah, because you've got an open environment, which means that it's cohesive, mate, and there are far too many bands. I was just writing about Cradle of Filth, who you might know, a British black metal band who had an enormous career trajectory back in the late 90s, but lost it because people in the band didn't want to contribute in the way that you've just described, which I think is the key to success. But success only comes when you've got people that are willing to contribute, and that was a key part of the reason why that version of Cradle of Filth broke up. And yourself and Kelly, though, you found Scott, Griffin, and Kurt. How did you find them, though? Was it an audition process, or are they friends of friends, so to speak?
Yeah, obviously me and Kelly, when Kelly decided to come back into the music scene, because he had taken quite a time off, so he wanted to do other stuff, and he had a new daughter that he wanted to be with, and he just took a nice time off, and we stayed best friends, and obviously we're battery mates. We're the rhythm section from the very first go of LA Guns, and so we're best friends. So with Scotty Griffin, he had already played in LA Guns as the bass player when Kelly was out, and he was very smart to do that too. He's a lead guitar player, but he knew that we were going out to tour, we were going to record, and that the bass player position was open. So he's like a really multi-talented instrumentalist. He could play piano, bass, guitar. It just sing great. And so when Kelly came back into the fold, Scotty pretty much thought that he was out of the picture, but I called him up, and I had seen him play guitar on the road with us and play in sound checks and in the studio, and I knew he was really great on lead guitar. And I called him up and I said, "Do you want to do this? And we want you to play lead guitar." And he was just bowled over. He was like, "Absolutely." So I think we made a great decision because he's a terrific guitar player. So there was no audition there. It was just an automatic fit. And like I said with Kurt, we were ready to do auditions with other singers and check other singers out, and we didn't have to do that. He was the very first guy we looked at, and we just, again, were just so lucky that he was as good as he is. His voice is just tremendous. His songwriting is great, and he's a great fan of LA Guns, so he wanted to do really good justice to the old material. And so putting the band together, the chemistry was right there immediately. It was very organic, and we didn't have any auditions at all, just Kurt coming out and singing, and we were like, boom, we were off and running. We were so fortunate.
So there are two versions of the band around these days, because I was looking online and sources actually list Renegades as a successor to the other versions of the band. The other versions of the band who had an album out, I think it was last year, called The Devil You Know. But they are unique bands. So have you got a strategy for differentiating between the two bands?
Well, I think that we definitely sound different. I mean, even though we're going to play some of the older material that me and Kelly co-wrote, and, obviously Kelly, everybody knows Kelly wrote Ballad of Jane, our biggest hit, but we're going to obviously do the older material because the fans want to hear it. But the difference is, in this new record, we don't sound like the other guys do. We definitely have a different style of writing, and it still stays true to LA Guns, but we're also going to do a different approach to our live shows. For like the last 25 years, I've been doing 200 to 250 club shows, and I don't want to do that anymore. It's a grueling experience, and you go on at 12:30 at night, and you're driving 400 miles to each club show, and it's just a really, really hard deal. What we're going to do with me and Kelly, we're going to do maybe like between 25 to 40 shows a year, and they're all going to be festivals, casinos, and maybe fairs, and maybe like a couple of satellite club shows. But the other guys are going to continue on doing those 200 to 250 club shows and not do as many festivals. So there is going to be a different approach to how each band goes out live. We're not going to do that big club tour everywhere. If we come over to Australia or New Zealand or Japan or Europe and there's clubs to do, that's fine. But in the States, we're going to definitely stick to festivals, fairs, casinos, and really like a soft ticket show where there's like maybe 3 or 4 or 5 other bands from LA or the genre on the bill. And they're real comfortable shows to do the festivals.
I love that about the United States, that bands can play in those places that you've decided that you want to pursue, because it does make your life a lot easier, because you are one of, say, 8 or 9 bands that'll be on a bill, and these places give a lot of value to the fans by allowing fans to like stay overnight, have a few bevies, and then have a bit of fun. Yeah. Maybe gamble $50 or whatever it might be, and then go and sightsee or whatever it might be. Because we don't really have that here in Australia. Of course, we haven't got a big enough population to support it. But I tell you, I might be writing an entry about you in my book, but I'm going to pitch this to you now. Once my book is finished, I'm going to send a copy to you. And
that would be terrific. I loved it.
What I would like to do, mate, is I would like to help you bring your biography to life, because you're somebody who has a story. You've got tales, as I say, from the road. You've been there. You've done it. You've lived the life. I think what's happening at the moment is people are looking at people of your era as like Motley Crue, like the buffoonery of the Motley Crue. But the truth is, there's a lot of bloody hard work that goes into what you're doing. And I don't think that aspect of it is being covered. And you've just articulated it beautifully there, because you've worked out, mate, that you can't do these 200 club shows a year. It's not going to work out. It's unfeasible. I think bands that are in their 20s struggle to do that, yet alone people that are in their 50s. And I'm in my 40s.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt, Andy. I'll tell you, obviously, when the big machine went down in music in the mid-'90s, late '90s, we all had to adapt. And one of the things you had to adapt to was that a lot of the shows were going to be club shows. And so you had to get into this mode of saying, we're going to be out there and we're going to be traveling, and not even in a tour bus. What we would do is we would fly in and we would get like a nice brand new van and drive between shows. And the thing with those club tours is that the equipment isn't good. The rooming, the hotels isn't very good. And the time you go on is like 12:30 in the morning, and then you wake up early the next morning to do the long drive to the next club. When you do the festivals, fairs, and casinos, the equipment is top notch. The rooming is top notch. The staging is huge with great PAs. So, I mean, it makes it a lot easier too, and it's just, it's just not that grueling schedule, and I really don't want to do that anymore. And that's fine if the other guys still want to do that, but me and Kelly, we're going to settle in over here and do really, really nice, comfortable shows that, like you said, have like, it's 8 or 9 bands on them. It's a full day or maybe even a full weekend, like M3 here, the M3 Festival. And just, it's a really nice experience, and you get to do an install there with the whole fans. And it's just really comfortable all the way around. But we want to play on good equipment. We want to stay at nice rooms too. And the clubs don't always have that,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. God, I'm a musician too, and I've played through some completely shit PAs, and you don't feel, and you don't feel like as though you're putting on a show, and you just don't. You can never be in the moment, which you need to be to put on a good show.
Exactly, and the other thing is that in some bands' heads too, they're saying yes, but we're headlining. But that really doesn't matter, I mean, even if we go on in the middle of a bill at a festival, that's great because the crowd is already there. And like I said, it's such great top-notch PA and equipment and staging, and you full backdrop and everything that, you got to get out of that mode of saying, oh, but we want a headline. No, that's okay. If you're headlining a club, it's a totally different thing. It's not really, the fans are probably worn out by 12:30 in the morning. And if you're going on in the middle of a bill in a festival, you got a fresh audience out there. So I like that, I dig that whole scene.
Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, you've been doing this for a long time. You're a survivor, I think it's fair to say. And the detail in that is you've had to learn how to manage a band appropriately, and you've had to learn how to recover from being ripped off and recover from people slandering you in the press, this sort of thing. Obviously, you've got a lot of resilience, but what else do you think is the secret ingredient, or one of the ingredients, if you like, that has helped you survive and succeed in such a tough industry?
It's kind of like, you have to just really love what you're doing. You have to love playing your instrument first, and that's number one. You really have to love playing the guitar, bass, or drums, or be a singer, keyboardist. You really have to really dig doing that, and that's the reward right there. But then after that, you have to really, really learn to bounce back from all of the other shit that's going on. If you take the criticism in the press too seriously and you're not able to bounce around it's going to destroy you. And you have to understand, a lot of people are going to like what you're doing, and there's going to be a lot of people that don't like what you're doing. And if you can take that criticism and bounce back from it and not take it too seriously where it's going to destroy your whole mental state, then that's a big, big factor. The other thing is pretty much what I was just telling you. If you can take being in the middle of a big bill and not being offended that you're not near the top or at the top of the bill, that's big too. You got to understand you're on the bill. You're on all of the advertising. Your name is everywhere. You're going to play in front of a huge crowd. So go with it and play that gig, and don't be offended that you're going to end up in the middle of a bill or even maybe near the bottom of a bill if there's a lot of bigger bands than you, because there are going to be a lot of bigger bands than you on that bill. So just go and do those shows, but you got to really, really love what you're doing. And I fell in love with drums when I was like 6 years old, so I've been playing for so long now, and I still love the instrument. And I love being able to say that I somewhat mastered the instrument. It's something that's missing nowadays too. I just read a thing on the internet where Guitar Center is here in LA is going to go bankrupt, and it's because they're not selling any instruments, and that's a big thing. My whole lifetime, I've grown up around people that have wanted to learn an instrument and master it, and master how to play that instrument and play any style on that instrument. And that's going to be a big hole in the music industry, where the next generation, there's a bunch of kids still playing and a bunch of new great bands out there, but not in full force on what it was. And so I think just the loving what you're doing, playing what your instrument you're playing, is just a huge factor in making it go for a long time, you know?
Yeah, what you just said then resonates big time, because in 2012 I was in Guitar Center in New York. I travelled over to just hang out and buy some instruments, and of all people, the bass tech, or bass and guitar tech in there, was Billy Idol's former bass player. I can't remember the gent's name now. He's an African-American guy. But we got talking about all sorts of things. He's an awesome guy. And he, after about 10 minutes of talking to him, he sort of went, things aren't going that well, essentially, with the sales side of things. And I went, okay, why? And he goes, all the people ever want to buy, and this is back then, they literally come in and say, I just want the cheapest insert instrument here, keyboard, bass, guitar. And I shit you not, mate, the next person that came in said, what's the cheapest bass that you have that I can buy? And he just looked at me, and I went, oh my God. It happened happened in front of my eyes. It was amazing to see that happen. And it's no surprise to me at all that we've evolved to a point from that point that instruments aren't selling at all. Totally. Because I know the kids these days,
I know,
they don't like rock and roll, and I don't understand it. Look, I'm 42. I even find that trying to get people into bands underneath the age of about 35 is impossible. Actually, I got to tell you, I tried to start a band with some younger people. I couldn't do it. It actually fell apart before. We had gigs booked and everything. This is a paying gig, man. You know how rare they are in the industry, especially in Australia.
Yeah.
But these guys were hopeless, absolutely useless, and I couldn't believe it.
That's sad.
Yeah, but this is what we're facing, I think, at the moment, and I think it provides definitely more opportunity for the Steve Rileys of the world, which I think is a wonderful thing. But then I think you also need the new bands coming through. I still shake my head in amazement that I see so many, and they're 12-year-olds at this point, wearing Metallica, Guns N' Roses and Nirvana T-shirts. It's good in one respect, but why aren't they getting into North Tail, like Bill Hudson's band, and some of these younger ones that are coming through that they can grow up with? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, because, with radio and TV gone, we were just so fortunate in the 80s, too, because we had MTV that was so dialed into rock and roll, and we were all over it. Everybody, every band from L.A. was all over it, and from outside of L.A., too. And we had radio, too, because MTV sparked the radio, too. So we had the radio and TV going. So when that dropped out, and we didn't have that kind of forum to show our music and people to hear our music, the next generation of bands, it went up to Seattle for about 4 or 5 years. But then after that, it started to spirit, and it was like getting really, really hard to find rock and roll anywhere on radio or on TV. So now we have this generation of bands that are aware of the bands from the 80s and the 70s, but they're not totally interested in it because they don't hear it a lot and they don't see it a lot. So, I mean, the whole thing has really turned upside down, and there's not really a lot of record stores. I mean, Jesus, we used to hang out in the record store for hours and just, browse and listen.
Same, yeah.
And there's not a lot of that right now either. So rock and roll right now, if you have some sort of if you're a classic rock band like LA Guns or Wasp, you're really fortunate. You got this whole catalog of songs that you're able to still go out and tour, and you're still able to record. But right now, recording, even with Renegades, we're so proud of it, and we really feel great about it. And Golden Robot Records is doing a terrific job with what they're doing throughout the year, with it finally coming up to the release after 3 singles. They're doing such a terrific job. But the fact of it is recording right now is almost a tool to get you out to play live now, because you don't have a lot of opportunity to get it on radio stations or on TV or make videos. So you're using your recording and you're trying to do your best job at that. Excuse me, but it's really gonna become a tool to help you get out there and play live. So the whole thing really is a little bit upside down right now. And but yeah, I feel for the younger bands too right now, because they're trying to get stuff going, and there's just not a lot of opportunity in this. There's still a lot of good bands out there, young bands, but you don't get to hear them that much or see them that much. It's sad. It's kind of sad.
No, I agree, yeah. Mate, sage words and wise advice. That's why these interviews that only last 25 minutes or so are always over far too quickly with legends such as yourself. I so totally appreciate having this conversation, and I'll have to reach out to your manager or to your agent, and or through John and Golden Robot, I suppose. Hopefully things are still intact with those guys in the future, mate. But I'll let you know when the book's done, mate, and I'll send you a copy. And just congratulations on everything that you've managed to achieve, and with all this bloody COVID stuff.
Thank you.
When it's done, mate, I hope we see you over here.
Yeah, we had a Zoom meeting with the Golden Robot people yesterday, and one of the things we talked about was an Australia, New Zealand, Japan tour in 2021, and I hope that comes off, because I really, really want to come over there badly. I've only been over there a couple of times, and I just want to come back to Australia, because I know there's like a ton of great rock fans over there, and who knows? We got our fingers crossed. We have our whole schedule from 2020 this year pushed into 2021. Nothing was canceled. It was all just postponed. But right now, we are just got our fingers crossed that we can pull these dates off next year and this thing calms down. It's been crazy. It's just shut down everybody's touring.
Mm-hmm. It has indeed, mate. Yeah, it's nuts. It's
it really
plenty
is.
Of fodder out there for the conspiracy theorists, believe me, and it's not a conspiracy to say why this particular virus. We've survived 3 or 4 of these things in the last 10, 15 years alone, but this one here is the one that stopped the world. Why? all in the year of the US presidential election. It's just nuts.
It totally is. There is a lot of conspiracy theories about this virus, and but I'll tell you what, it really did just shut down everything in rock and roll and touring and making movies, because I live out here in Hollywood, and it's just shut down pretty much everything. And that's why we were so fortunate, bro, to finish Renegades at the end of 2019. We finished the whole thing, artwork and everything, before this virus set in. Otherwise, we would have been screwed if we tried to do it this year. We wouldn't have been able to do it. It would have been crazy.
No, that's great. Yeah,
and you know what? One other thing too, I wanted to tell you, Andy. Like, I know fans, it's a tough thing to find out what bands are doing and how they're doing and what's going on with their touring. Anybody that is a fan of LA Guns, they can go to laguns.net and they can find out everything about our touring schedule, everything about the album and how they can get it, because it's so difficult to find the outlets or where you can get it. And so laguns.net is the place for any LA Guns fans. They can find out everything about the band with the album and the touring and merchandise and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, Renegades is fantastic, mate. It truly is. It's such a well put together rock and roll album. It's hard rock in just the way that I think a lot of people like me who have been listening to heavy metal, hard rock, punk for the last 35 years. It's been that long for me now, 30 or 35 odd years, ever since I was about 12. Like the way, as we're evolving, mate, and getting a bit older, it's listenable. It's still heavy, it's still got that crunch, but it's listenable.
I really appreciate that. I'm so glad that you like it, man. It means a lot to me. And I got to produce the album, too, so it was a lot of fun putting it together. And
Awesome.
It comes out November 13th, and we're just excited for everybody. They know they've heard the first 3 singles, but we're really excited for everybody to hear the entire album right now.
All right, well, look, good luck with everything, mate, and I absolutely would love to catch up with you when you guys come down to Australia, but look out for that book sometime in the near future as well.
Oh, listen, good luck with that, too. It sounds like it's going to be a great book, man, and I can't wait to read it, and thanks for including me in there. That means a lot to me, too. And me and you, we will definitely hook up if we come down to Australia.
Wicked. I look forward to that, man, yeah. Thanks so much, brother. I really appreciate your time, eh?
Okay. Be safe, Andy. I'll talk to you soon.
No worries, mate. Talk to you. Okay, catch you.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online. My name's Andrew Mackay-Smith. Before I let you go, if you think it's a good idea, as I mentioned in the introduction to the conversation there with Steve from LA Guns, that I put a verbal date stamp into each podcast episode, let me know. Let me know via socials. I'm easily found on Facebook and on Instagram. I could probably just go ahead and do it, not even ask you, but fuck it, might as well put it out there and see if somebody gets back to me. People have been pretty good actually getting back to me about things in the past, so I'd appreciate some feedback. Anyway, thanks for listening.